welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you have made the connection and are with us today. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us in ways that get us thinking, get us connected, and perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a bit more because we've made that connection. Our topic today is about civil engagement through thoughtful debate. In New York Mills, Minnesota, the Cultural Center hosts the Great American Think-Off. Our show today will explore the history, the philosophy, and the opportunity for you to join in and share your point of view, to declare your opinion and take a stand. And in our first segment, we have Betsy Roeder, who's the Executive Director of New York Mills Cultural Center, and Justin Moen, who is the Think-Off Committee Chair. Welcome.
Morning. Thanks for having us.
Oh, so glad you're here. So Betsy, being the Executive Director, tell me about the New York Mills Cultural Center, a little history behind it, and then we can talk about the Great American Think-Off. So whatever you'd like to share about the New York Mills Cultural Center.
Sure. So we were founded in 1990, originally as an artist residency program. Our founder, John Davis, was an MCAD grad and moved to New York Mills, bought an old farmhouse and started painting houses. And when he was painting houses, he got to know the community. And what he found was that even though we are a rural area, a lot of farmers, we have manufacturing, and he didn't expect this, but it was people who really were seeking more arts and culture and more opportunities to have discussions about philosophical topics, all sorts of things. He was often invited into people's homes to have lunch together. And so he started to have this idea of what if we could be something more than just an artist residency program. And there was an old historic building in town that was maybe going to be destroyed. And so he thought, well, let's make that into an art center instead. The city supported it from the start. It was a group of volunteers, local people who all chipped in, and the Cultural Center became what we are today in this 1885 historic building on Main Avenue in New York Mills, which opened its doors in 1992. And then the Think-Off started in 1993. So we are now very multidisciplinary. We have a beautiful gallery space. We have live music, workshops, classes. There's a sculpture park on the edge of town. We still have that artist residency program. And then we host a number of community events, of which the Great American Think-Off is the longest running and one of our favorites here at the Cultural Center.
And the Great American Think-Off sponsors an annual philosophy contest. And you take a question, and people of all ages and backgrounds are encouraged to submit an essay, no more than 750 words, that are either pro or con to that question. So with that, when they submit it, which will be April 1st, a committee will look it over. They will select the 4 top participants, both pro and con, and they'll have a live debate right at your New York Mills. And you've been doing this, you say, since 1993. So this will be your 33rd year?
That's correct.
And the event itself is amazing. And we encourage people to submit. If you don't get into the final 4, come to the event anyway. Come up to New York Mills, see the wonderful Cultural Center, and participate in the weekend. The weekend is June 13 and 14. So, Justin, you are the committee chair. Tell me about some of the philosophical underpinnings and share with us the question for this year.
Sure. So if you'll permit me a story,
yes.
Saying how do we turn philosophy into action? So I moved back to Otter Tail County a couple of years ago. The Think-Off has been on my radar, et cetera. I was living in the state of Kansas, moved back. It's the summer. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm sitting on a John Deere 210, old 1970s lawn tractor. Got my feet up on the hood. We're sharing some barley pops with the boys, and I just said, "Hey, there's this interesting question at the Think-Off, and people are familiar with it." And just said, "Okay, what's the question this year?" And it pitted economic protections versus environmental protections. And here I am out in the county, and we ended up talking about this for probably an hour and 45 minutes of just this back and forth. It was a group of people that we don't necessarily see things the same. But it was in that particular moment that I understood like the real value and I want to say like the why behind the Think-Off. of yes, there's the debate, and I'm not diminishing that particular thing, but it's the conversations that ripple out from this in really unexpected places and in unexpected ways that created one curiosity amongst everybody. Why do you feel that way? And everyone was kind of doing this. I don't want to say we executed it really well because it seems it seems like a superpower at this particular moment, but we're really trying to understand where everyone was coming from, as opposed to just sitting and waiting for someone to finish speaking so that we could jump in and say, no, this is why you're wrong. And really, at the end, I don't really know that any of us changed our initial position. But we understood better where the other people were coming from. We understood the premise. We understood the logic that went through their entire argument, why they come to the conclusion that they did, and shook hands and moved on to the next topic, which was we have to get back to yard work. I can't just use this as a lawn chair. This is an actual lawn tractor, and we better do something with it. And it's saying, like, if you're thinking about the philosophy behind this, I really think that this is that in a highly, well, and I don't want to say highly polarized, this isn't hyperbole, but in a polarized world where identities are intimately wrapped up with political positions or something like this, they're asking a general question that kind of put people in two camps. You can just kind of assume who's going to support environmental protections, who's going to support economic protections. And the real answer is yes, but for an hour and 45, it was, let's not do the yes, and bit. Let's just talk through this and walk through this together. And it's saying, this is, I think, and Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong, the value add proposition and the philosophy behind the Great American Think-Off is, how do you have a disagreement with your neighbor, with your friend, in a garage, let alone in a public space like City Hall or something like that, which I also spend an awful lot of time in City Hall, without it turning into ad hominem attacks, without it turning into or just kind of reverting to tribalism, and just disagreeing with each other to the point where we're no longer friends. And
you don't shy away from tough topics. And that's what also I like. The first one I looked back up took place in 1993. And the question is, the nature of humankind, inherently good or inherently evil? That's not just a little topic that you have over coffee. This is something that you do want to dig into a little bit more. Does life have meaning? Does God exist? Is the pen mightier than the sword? Is it ever wrong to do the right thing? Does technology free us or trap us? So those are things that you have to spend some time thinking about what you really feel about. And you might feel both. You might say, yes, I feel that, and no, I don't feel that. That process, I think, is interesting, of discovery for your own self.
Yeah, if I can expand on this just a little bit, is the information carousel that just surrounds us all day, every day, gives us a lot of a what. Mm-hmm. It's just always what. You can't get into a conversation with someone saying, "Oh, I saw this statistic the other day," which is great. Mm-hmm. Information literacy is important. Using facts to move public discourse into public policy, into action items, downstream things is important. But very rarely do we spend time talking about the why. And I think that's where, like, the value of this conversation is. Let's get to the why question, and I think with this year's question in particular is, what is our why? And let's just kind of follow that thread throughout history into 2026 and see if we're actualizing in 26 this ideal established 250 years ago. It's not established, penned.
And with that, I'll share the question, because I don't think we've shared the question yet. And it is
a good. Sorry.
No, it's perfect. And you led up to it perfectly. We've teased it up to this moment. In celebrating the 250 years, we can go back to our Declaration of Independence that talks about this pursuit of happiness. And the question 250 years later is, has the pursuit of happiness made Americans unhappy? And as you were talking about all the things that come at us and all the things that, we deal with, the much more complicated, much more technologically oriented busyness that we're involved in, are we happier? And that's a question to ponder, a question to go, yes, we are happier, or yes, the pursuit does make sense, or no, we're unhappy. Maybe we shouldn't be pursuing happiness. And something that I hope would encourage and entice our audience to think about. This is a show about ideas that matter. This is an idea that matters. And how would you want to defend that? We're not often asked to defend our ideas. We have it all coming at us. But what does it take to mull on it and go, no, this is what I believe, and I'm willing to stand up and say I believe this?
And I'll note, too, that when the committee does choose the question each year, one of the things that we talk about is that we want to be able to really clearly see both sides. And I think that's very true in this question, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great thing to ponder. I think there's very clear arguments on both sides that this idea of the pursuit of happiness was a good one 250 years ago. And then this idea of how has it actualized, and being able to really be open-minded to see that there are great points on both sides of the question is a qualifying way that we look at choosing that final question.
And when do you decide on a question? How long does it take to come up with a question?
Funny that you asked.
After some not so civil debate in turn. No, that's not how that works.
It takes us a couple months. We try to start meeting in the fall, late summer, early fall. We try to start meeting. The Cultural Center is, as I mentioned, very multidisciplinary. We host between 150 and 180 events a year. And the Think Off is one, and a very important one that, requires a lot of time and energy and effort. But it is still just one event. But so we typically start to meet in the fall, and we used to always announce the question on January 1st. We actually have changed that in the last couple of years to announce it on January 15th, which has been very helpful. There have been several years where it's like, New Year's Eve, and I'm writing the press release. And I don't know about anybody else, but that's not my favorite thing to do on New Year's Eve. But we have been down to like December 27th meeting to make that final decision on the question. So it is certainly a process. We try to, really go through all the things that we think about. Is it philosophical? Is it relevant? Does it stand the test of time? We talk about timelessness as well as timeliness when we're deciding on that question. So there's a lot of things we consider.
Has a question ever impacted a community in a more powerful way than maybe another question that resonated over time? And I'll let you go first. I'll let you go first, Betsy.
Yeah. So, okay. You mentioned some of the questions, and I do think that these questions have really caused our small town of New York Mills to sort of question itself. I remember the question about does God exist was a heavy one because people really, we've got a lot of Lutherans around here that, thought maybe we shouldn't be asking a question like this. But yet, to Justin's point, that the importance of being able to have conversations in our yard, in our garages with our friends and family, and still, wake up the next day and have that relationship is important. So I think that, that question was certainly a big one for our small town. There was an assisted suicide question, which is clearly really personal, and that got pretty emotional, I would say. And we also asked the question in 2004, should same-sex marriages be prohibited? And I think that was an interesting one too. Like I remember 2004, I was out of college, but living in Minneapolis at that time. And I remember being at the reception afterwards. I had just attended. And I remember someone saying, talking about like, what does this mean for New York Mills? Like, now, how are people going to look at New York Mills as a small town? We're supposed to be conservative. And now we said, yes, same-sex marriages are okay. Like, what does that mean for our community? And, I thought, well, I think that's great. It means that we're open-minded and we're open to all different sorts of people. So for me, I think that these are all good things. At the Cultural Center, we have values around hospitality and inclusivity. We want everyone to feel welcome no matter what. So I would argue that in our 32 years of hosting this event, I think it has affected our community in that we hopefully are more open to different ideas. And, this idea that just because we have a conversation about something, we can honor what someone is saying without having to say, yes, I believe that too, but we can still honor and respect their opinion.
And Justin, do you have a favorite from all these years?
I think it's this one.
Oh, really? Cool.
And I just mean that in the, I think it's time to just kind of take stock of where we are today. High materialism, postmodernity, like we're at this point in time where let's reevaluate kind of this. Well, I don't want to call it the hedonic treadmill, but the hedonic treadmill that we've been running on for a little while. And maybe I'm putting my finger on it too much here, but it's just saying is like, are we at our best right now? Mm-hmm. And what does the next 250 look like? So my hope is that it's not necessarily the question. Mm-hmm. I like the question. It's a fun thought puzzle.
It's timeless for this 250
for
years.
Sure.
Yes.
It's the muscle that grows out of it. Is the practice and the process is maybe not a policy question, but a way in which we interact with each other going forward. Of saying we can disagree about something as foundational and fundamental as are we actualizing the promise and principle laid out before us in 1776 in 2026 and looking at the next 250 years of the American experiment. And how do we navigate that disagreement going forward? And I really think that this is the part that I love is just that practice. And because it's hard. It's really, really hard, especially today. And I don't want to make it like today's worse than any other day.
But there is a divide, and anything that can allow us to get connected. And I've seen it myself in New York Mills, the connection that gets built, the willingness. I still think there's a hunger to connect, but we don't always know how. And perhaps this gives us a little window into thinking about how do we connect and what are ways to be able to express ourselves so we can be heard, and how do we listen at a different level as well, and not just repeat statements that we hear on all the different technology and different messages coming at us. How do we start owning those messages for ourselves, which I think is so important. Sure. Well, I also want to make sure that the audience knows how to submit their essay. So you need to know this for your getting onto the website. It's a very simple website. It's think-off.org. You'll get to the New York Mills Cultural Center, and then you just go to the little Think Off, and it gives you the overview. It gives you the link for submitting, and I hope you'll consider submitting. And if you don't actually submit, think about coming and kind of testing the waters and seeing what it's all about, and enjoying yourself on June 13th and 14th in New York Mills. Did you have one more question for us, or something that you want to share, Justin?
Just the comment is not just the mission part. I really hope people come check out New York Mills. It really is a gem of a community. It's really a lovely place. The Regional Cultural Center is an absolute treasure, and Betsy is a rock star. One of those people that you absolutely have to know. I met her a couple of years ago, and I'm just really, really grateful for the opportunity to work with her on this particular project. So I hope that you join us in New York Mills in June.
And I can also say that I've been there twice, and I love it. And I will for sure be there this year as well. And Betsy, do you have any closing comments as well?
Just really looking forward to hopefully seeing people in New York Mills. We have a variety of activities happen on Friday, June 12th and Saturday, June 13th. So join us for the weekend, and we'll look forward to welcoming you as well.
And you've been listening to the Connections Radio Show here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. We'll be right back, and we'll hear more about the process of getting involved and what that takes. And we'll hear from actual participants what it was like for them. So I look forward to having you join us in just a few minutes. We'll be right back. Laurie Fitz, your host, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. And I'm glad you've joined the conversation today. Our topic today is about civil engagement through thoughtful debate. For 32 years, now going on 33, New York Mills Cultural Center in rural Minnesota has celebrated the power of ideas and encourages giving voice to our thoughts and beliefs by participating in the Great American Think-Off. And in our second segment, we have Betsy Roeder, the executive director of New York Mills Cultural Center. She's joining us. And we have past participants and winners. We have David Lepaco and Blaine Rada. Welcome. We're so glad you're here today.
Good to be here.
Very nice to be here.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Well, I'd love to have both Blaine and David share a little bit about what you are, your little background on what you do, and what makes you you. We'll start with David.
Okay. Well, people have been wondering what makes me me. I have to figure that out too. I suppose it all began being on a debate team in high school and college, and that directed me toward communication, toward advocacy, toward critical thinking issues, discourse, controversy, and that sort of thing. And so I wound up teaching full-time for 38 years at Augsburg University, often teaching a course in argumentation and persuasion and a bunch of other courses too, all connected to communication. So I suppose that's put me in the direction of something like the Great American Think-Off. And when I saw a short story on it announcing the topic in 2013, I said, what the heck, let's give it a try. So that's kind of a short bio, but that's the main path that I took to get to here.
Wonderful. And Blaine, tell us about you.
So I guess you'd say I'm a communications professional of sorts. For the last 30 some odd years, I've been a keynote speaker and trainer primarily in the mortgage and insurance industries.
And Betsy, what I'd love to have you do to kick us off is, what do you like best about the Great American Think-Off?
Well, that's a hard one. It's definitely one of my favorite events that we host here at the Cultural Center every year. And I think my favorite part of it is this idea of embracing the small town values that maybe people don't always necessarily think of when you're thinking of a philosophy contest. But this idea of civil discourse, and I think this is actually a Blaine Rada saying, but disagreeing without being disagreeable. Is that you, Blaine? I think I borrowed that from you.
I'm certainly not the first person who has said that.
But I love that idea and how it relates to living in a small town. So I grew up in New York Mills and left for about 15 years and then came back and started working at the Cultural Center. And one thing that I think about a lot is that when you grow up in a small town and you live in a small town and you know most of your neighbors, even if you disagree on some big ideas, you have to figure out how to get along, because you're going to maybe be sitting next to them at the basketball game, or you're going to sit next to them in church, or you're going to see them at the grocery store. So we all have to figure out, how do we get along and how do we make sure that we can maintain those relationships, even if we don't agree on big ideas. And also this idea that, big thinking doesn't just happen in university settings. It happens everywhere. Our logo is the thinker on the tractor. And, we come from this farming community, a rural area. There it is. Thank you, Laurie. And it's that idea that, big thinking happens on the tractor. Big thinking happens at the local cafe. And so those are the things that I really love about the Great American Think-Off.
And to recap for those that may have just joined us, the Great American Think-Off takes a statement and allows folks who want to write about what they feel one way or the other and defend it. So in that essay, the essay is 750 words. The finalists, the 2 pro and 2 con, are asked to come to New York Mills June 13th and do a live debate. And to get us in sort of the mood for writing, because I'm hoping that our audience will take up the challenge and decide to make a statement, give their opinion. This year's question: has the pursuit of happiness made Americans unhappy? David Lepaco, you and I go back to graduate school, which is great fun to have you on this radio show. And I had you over 10 years ago on the show, 2015. You told me about this great, interesting event that was taking place and that you were a finalist. And you invited me up. I got totally hooked on the event and all the things that happened up in New York Mills. And you won. It was fabulous. So tell me about your experience. You've done this a couple times. You've done this more than once. You've submitted more than once, but you've actually been a finalist twice. Is that right? And
I think 4 times, but
okay.
As a finalist, one of the final 4. But anyway, there might be some clerical errors. I think they're still checking on that. But no, I have since 2013. I've submitted an essay every year, whether I'm eligible to be on stage or not. And I do it just for the exercise of doing it and to support the event. But it's become sort of a bad habit. And so even this year, although I've got a very large pile of things on my desk right now, I've got a few weeks to submit something for the Think Off, even though I'm not eligible to be on stage this year because I was a couple of years ago. But I've been a finalist 4 times, I think.
Have you started your essay?
I wrote a draft a few weeks ago, and then I got caught up in these other things that have earlier deadlines. And so I'll get back to it, but it'll probably be March 15th.
So, Blaine, you have been the winner twice.
Yes. Yeah, actually back in 2005 was when I first heard about the event, and it really intrigued me, not only the question that was posed, but this whole idea of coming to a decision on a difficult question and then trying to figure out what 750 words can I possibly use to explain myself. And I just really took that on as a personal challenge, having no idea really that it would lead to being a finalist and winning that event in 2005. And I became hooked. I thought this was the most amazing personal development thing, really the most quintessentially American thing I had ever done that nobody's heard of. And I decided that whenever there was a question that intrigued me, I would enter. And that the writing of the essay, the deciding which side to pick, that was really where the value was. And so I think I've submitted 7 essays over the years. And in 2022, so 17 years after my first essay and my first win, I was a finalist and won again. So apparently I've still got a few brain cells working even 17 years later.
What were the 2 questions that you responded to?
So in 2005, it was competition or cooperation, which benefits society more. I chose cooperation. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's a bit of an irony that I won a competition arguing for cooperation. And in 2022, it had to do with social responsibility versus personal choice. And I chose the higher value being social responsibility.
And David, I remember that yours had something to do with technology.
Yeah,
in 2015.
The question, and they actually, no, I will correct you, Laurie, and say that they're really questions and not statements. The question was, does technology free us or trap us? And so I was on the free us side, although obviously technology traps us in some ways too. But think about what we're doing right now. And think of what we've been able to do with technology that was we couldn't even imagine it 30 years ago, that we would be talking in this kind of an environment.
Even 10 years ago, we had telephone connection, and we weren't able to be able to see each other and have this kind of level of professional technology that allows us to hear clearly and see each other and have a great conversation. Have either of you ever started the essay and then decided you wanted to go a different way? Or did you just know from the get-go, this is what I'm going to defend? And I'll start with Blaine.
I think that happens in my mind before I start writing. So usually I think about the question for a long time. And it's not that I'm thinking about it all the time, but over a period of many weeks, maybe even a few months, I'm kind of batting that question around in my mind. But once I come to the conclusion, then once I start writing, it's really just a matter of supporting the decision that I've already made.
How about you, David?
I can't think of a time where I hemmed and hawed a lot. Usually I get a pretty definite sense of which side I want to be on fairly early in the game. And, sometimes, one year I wasn't a finalist. I thought it might have been the best essay that I had written on which motivates us more, fear or love. And I got to tell you, I was convinced, and I'm still convinced, that fear motivates people more than love, as much as I like love. And I thought it was a great essay, but I wouldn't change for a moment. I think things that scare the crap out of us are things that motivate us in ways that love never quite will. So, but usually I've had a pretty strong feeling right out of the gate as to, which side I'm going to be on. And that's sort of the case this year. I won't say which side I'm on, but it didn't take too long to figure out, I think that's the better option for me.
I love that you're still debating. You're not giving up on it, even though the debate's over. You still have a few things to say about love versus fear. It's great. Now, there's all sorts of events that happen around. Not only is there a terrific live debate that people can participate, but share with us some of the exciting and wonderful things that happen right around the event. And this year it will be June 13th and 14th. And we'll start with David. I know you've got lots of things that you love about the events.
Okay, Betsy may want to chime in too, since she's seen so many of these, but it varies somewhat from year to year. But typically there's live music. Typically there 1 year there was a hay wagon that went through town promoting the event. There's a reception afterwards that a lot of people show up for. And then there's the first reception is the night before the Think Off on Friday night. So there's a lot of socializing that goes on. And one of the really sweet and charming things about it is that people do talk about the question, not just about fishing or something. And they really want to talk about what the issues are. And so that's sort of a real nice side benefit, that the entire community and everybody who shows up seems to be engaged with that topic. But
and the debate lives on. Yeah. Now I'm going to go to Blake. Blake, tell me what favorite thing that you like, that you look forward to when you come to New York Mills, and either you are participating and debating, or I know last year you came and were an honorary mention, weren't you? And participated as a supporter.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times as an audience member, which is a completely different experience and actually something that I really enjoyed. I think every time I've gone to New York Mills, I've just felt really welcomed, not just because I'm a finalist in the Think Off, although that certainly kind of elevates you to a certain amount of fame that is almost a little uncomfortable. The first year that I was there in 2005, I almost felt as if people were making me into a celebrity, and kind of had this assumption that here are these 4 brilliant people coming into our small town. And over the years, thankfully, I think that the putting the people on a pedestal has stopped, and that people realize that, we're all just kind of fellow humans trying to figure out life. And the welcoming of the community, and the fact, to David's point, that people are sincerely interested in the question. And, well into the night beyond the Think Off itself, people are still talking about the question and the points that the debaters made. And it's just fascinating to me that people from all of these surrounding communities will make the pilgrimage to New York Mills every year, whether they're an audience member or part of the organization, and support the event. It's just, to me, it's something that I actually speak to groups about often, because I really encourage people from, all over the United States to participate, to challenge themselves, to pick a side on a difficult question, to pick 750 words that you think support why you believe what you believe. And whether your essay is ever chosen or not, I think that's really where the value is. And I've just gained so much from it. I'm a forever fan.
Yeah. Well, the values really are kind of on 2 levels. Individually, it's like if you're a runner, you need to have a 5K or a half marathon to run. If you make portraits out of grain, you need to be able to submit them to the state fair. So
seed art.
And so it dignifies and motivates what you're doing. But at the broader level, for the community, I think it's a huge benefit in the way that it promotes civil discourse, thoughtful consideration of an issue. So I think it operates both well on the individual level and collectively.
Well, I want to remind our audience that April 1st is the deadline. Again, the question is, has the pursuit of happiness made Americans unhappy? And what I'd love, Betsy, is to perhaps have you give some tips for folks to think about. I know personal experience is something that is highly recommended, but it's some other tips that you have for the folks that are thinking about submitting an essay.
Yeah, I think the idea, or what Blaine and David have both talked about, is just the exercise of writing the essay is a really good one to go through. And then, for goodness sake, submit it, right? There's no cost. We're looking for opinions from everywhere. that personal experience is really important. We specifically say the personal experience is more important than philosophical abstraction. We want to hear your story, and I would just encourage you to use your voice. We're living in an era of chat GPT and having technology help us sound smarter. And I would say this is one instance where you don't want that. You want your true voice to come out. We want to hear from you. We want uniqueness in the essays. That's what's going to really make you stand out. And that piece is really important. There's a lot of essays that are getting read by our volunteer committee, and I think that uniqueness piece is really important in terms of getting noticed.
And you get submissions from all over the world. This is not just like a Minnesota thing. Tell me a little bit about that.
No. Yeah, so, in recent years, it seemed like about half of the essays would come from Minnesota and the other half of the essays would come from all other states in the United States. And that shifted. We get quite a few international essays in recent years. So I think it was as much as a quarter of the essays that were coming from international countries. And then the rest was kind of spread out in that it still is pretty heavy to Minnesota, of course, given that's our home state. But we have received essays from all 50 states throughout our history, and we think we're at about 30 different countries with that count as well. So it gets really broad reach. It's amazing to me, actually.
And if you could give us just a little sneak peek behind the curtain as to how the process takes place of reading these and making those decisions.
Yeah, so we're pretty grassroots. I've called us scrappy in recent weeks when I've been talking about the Cultural Center in general. We were one of the first rural art centers of its kind in the U.S., and so we've been sort of figuring it out as we go and defining things as we go. Building the plane in the air, as they say. But the process itself is really driven by. The process itself is really driven by this idea of the community coming together to help. So there's a volunteer committee. We meet throughout the year. That's the group that chooses the question every year. We've been meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. So we just had our meeting and, we talk about the process and how are we going to how are we going to review the essays? What's the rubric? How does that scoring happen? Every essay gets read by at least 2 committee members, and then the final batch of essays gets read by all of the committee members. We are working on upping our game technologically, so we have a new form this year. It's a Google form that's going to make the processing of essays a little bit easier, so we continue to make improvements on our end as well. But it really is an important part of that committee review process that I think makes this unique as well, because it's not, professional reviewers. These are community members that are coming together with different opinions and different perspectives and different backgrounds. And that's an important part of the process.
Well, we're coming to the close of this segment. I'd love to have both Blaine and David share some final thoughts on encouraging folks to be part of this and why it's been important to you. So I'm going to start with Blaine.
Well, I can't encourage people enough to just give it a try. I know a lot of folks that dabble with writing, but they never want anyone else to see what they've written. And I would say you just need to kind of get over yourself when it comes to that. You want your voice to be heard. And I think that probably the biggest thing that this event has done for me personally is to help me realize, and this is going to kind of sound very common sense, to help me realize that by choosing one side, I'm not diminishing the other. By choosing cooperation, I'm not suggesting that there's no place for competition. By choosing a social responsibility, I'm not saying that I don't value personal choice. And so if we expand that out to all the conversations that we have with our, network of friends and colleagues and relatives about politics and other topics that could be a little bit more heated, to really kind of believe in the idea that just because I disagree with you, your opinion is still valuable and important. And that by understanding other people's perspective, it actually improves my worldview. And I don't know that I would have come to that conclusion had I not participated in the Think Off over these years.
One of the things that strikes me when you share that is the idea that we can be influenced by each other, that when we listen deeply, we can find that way to be influenced. But also, we're such a passive society and having so much coming in at us, we don't often have a chance to go, no, I own this. And this is what I own, and this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and I'm going to stand up and declare it, and maybe even debate it if we get to be the last participants. So thank you. Thank you for your sharing, Blaine. And I'm hoping that folks get over themselves, decide to say something. David, share a little bit about why you think it's important.
Well, I mean, I second everything that Blaine said. Mm-hmm. And I think really, I don't care if you're a singer-songwriter or a sculptor or a novelist or even someone who has a great recipe for, chicken cacciatore or something. You want a voice, you want an audience, you want to share in some way. And the Think Off enables that to happen. And so I think one has to, first ante up and enter and be involved, and then magical things can happen. So you might be selected for an honorable mention. Maybe you won't be on stage, but at least you know that, as Betsy is telling you, a committee of people will be reading your essay. And you can also promote your essay. I mean, I have a blog. When I haven't made finals, I put the essay on the blog and said they didn't think it was good enough, but here it is. So I think the idea that we're not powerless, that we can have a voice, we can learn about ourselves and about the issue, and have a deeper understanding of it. And some of the things that Blaine was talking about are all good. I don't know what the bad side of the Think Off is, and its uniqueness has been a great treasure, I think, in our state and to have, because there just aren't many of these kinds of events.
No, there aren't. I don't know of any other that's quite like this. With that, I just want to review the process again. You've got the question. The question asks you, let me see, I'm going to pull it up. Has the pursuit of happiness made Americans unhappy? You have till April 1st to get your essay in. And then May 1st, they'll announce it. And then June 13th, if you're one of the participants, you come to the live debate, ready to debate your idea. If you haven't made it, come anyway. It's a great event. I want to share the website so that you can submit that essay. And the website to go to is think-off.org. And Betsy, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Just encourage everybody to write that essay and get it submitted. And like you said, Laurie, whether you make it or not, come and join us for the debate. The last thing I'll add is that on this note of listening, really listening and being willing to be influenced, the audience actually votes to select the winner. And we ask them to think about who makes the best argument. So not necessarily what they agree with, but who makes the best argument. So again, honoring this idea of civil discourse and really being an active listener. So it's a really cool experience to be part of, whether it's the debate, the party afterwards, the reception before. There's all kinds of fun things. So join us in New York Mills in June.
Looking forward to it. I'll be there. So thank you so much for joining the conversation today. We'll be right back after a few short commercials here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota on Connections Radio Show. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host, and we're so glad that you are part of Connections Radio Show today, where we talk about ideas that matter. And I'm glad you've joined the conversation. Our topic today has been about civil engagement through thoughtful debate. And for 32 years, now going on 33, New York Mills Cultural Center in rural Minnesota has celebrated the power of ideas and encouraged giving voice to our thoughts and beliefs by participating in the Great American Think-Off. And in our third segment here, Betsy Roeder, the executive director, will be sharing more about the wonderful things that the Great American Think-Off does for the community. We'll continue our conversation that we started in our first segment, but also how you can be a part of it, not only by participating in the essay, but supporting the good work that they do. And so, Betsy, I'm going to let you share about the various ways that you are supported and funded. And I will say right off the bat, I am a member. I support, I am a groupie for the Great American Think-Off. And I love all the things that you do. And I want to give you the chance to be able to share how other people can also get involved.
Yeah. Thank you, Laurie. You know, we have always been in this small town, and so our belief that we're here for everybody, we're a place for everybody to belong, and we really invite everybody to come and be part of that journey. That's always been part of our story. So the Great American Think-Off, just like all of our programs, we want to be accessible to everybody. A ticket to get in is $15, $5 if you're a student. We really try to make things as accessible as possible. We also stream the debate on YouTube. So if you can't actually make it to New York Mills, you can join us in that way. And there is an opportunity to give online to support civil discourse. We've got that link on our website always. And we really invite everybody to be a member of the Cultural Center, make a contribution in some way to continue civil discourse and all of the work that we do here in New York Mills. We started in 1990. We've been on Main Avenue since 1992. And we are supported by local members, businesses, individuals. We get grants from all over the country, and we earn revenue as well through a variety of programs like the Great American Think-Off. We have a gift store, we have concerts and classes and all sorts of things. So we're doing a lot of different things to generate revenue. And it really does take everybody being part of that to be able to continue our story.
And you have something else going on right now too, don't you?
We do. So I think one of the unique things about us is when the Think-Off was brand new in 1993, it started right here in our historic building, quickly outgrew that space. You know, we can fit about 80 to 100 people on folding chairs. So it was here for, I think, the first 2 or 3 years. And then we moved to the school gym. And then in 2000, an auditorium was built at the school. So now you get to sit in comfortable chairs in the school auditorium for the debate, which we're very grateful for. We do a lot of partnering within the community and the school system. But what I think that is unique about this is that we have grown in this 30 plus years of serving New York Mills and Otter Tail County, and we really have outgrown our space here. Our building was built in 1885. It's the oldest building in town, and it needs some renovation. So we've worked hard to keep up over the years. We do have a new roof. We have handicap accessible doors, but our front facade is really failing us right now. And so we are actually in the middle of a once in a generation capital campaign to renovate our current space and to expand. So we are super excited. We're raising $2.3 million. We're currently at $1.45 million committed. So we're 63% of the way there. Work on the front facade begins this April, and our goal is to have it done and ready to go by Think-Off weekend. So we hope that will be all new and ready to present. And if not, we're going to have some really cool murals and educational information about energy saving windows for you all to see. So we embrace flexibility around here, but we look forward to welcoming everyone in June and hope to break ground on our expansion this fall. So really inviting people to get involved in whatever way works for you, but be part of that story. This is a once in a generation ask that we're hoping to really build the Cultural Center for the future and to continue to serve our community, the region, and Minnesota as a whole.
So I'm going to recap a few ways that you can get involved as an audience member. Get active with this New York Mills Cultural Center. If you want to be part of the debate, we encourage you to take a look, go to the website, and the website is very simple. It's think-off.org. Take a look at the question. The question this year is, has the pursuit of happiness made Americans unhappy? If you want to take a stand on that, pro or con, do an essay under 750 words, submit it, and you might just end up being one of the 4 finalists that get to debate live. Now, the event takes place June 12th and 13th. The 13th is when we have the actual debate. I want you to come even if you don't write the essay, if you don't become a participant, because I'd like you to support and I'd like you to see how wonderful New York Mills is. And I believe that if you come to New York Mills for this great party, you'll be moved, you'll want to be a member, and you may even want to contribute to the once-in-a-lifetime building fund that allows this capital campaign to be successful. And we're looking forward to having it be all buffed up and ready to go June 12th and 13th. And then there is the party the night before. There's the debate on Saturday the 13th. And then you could just spend Sunday just enjoying this wonderful town, this little sweet gem in northern Minnesota that is a destination that's worth seeing. Plus, you can get wonderful little gifts. I bought lots last year. I'll probably buy lots this year too. But there's many ways to support it. And really what we're doing is not only supporting the New York Mills Cultural Center, we're supporting civil conversation. And I think that's something that now more than ever, how do we reach that place where we can have civil conversation? So thank you, Betsy, for all that you do. And thank you for inviting some great guests for us to be able to talk about this event, our past participants, our philosophy committee chair that gave us some insights about how important this is. So any last thought that you want to give us?
Just appreciate the time. The more we can get the word out about the Great American Think-Off, the better. We really appreciate you featuring us this morning. So thanks, Laurie.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get my pen ready. I have started to think about it. So now I have to move to the next level of think off and get it on the essay.
That's right. Write that essay. Turn it in by April 1st.
I will. Take care and have a great day. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And I hope you'll participate in the Great American Think-Off.